Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all doing well, and today, my friends, we're here to talk legendary Chaos Lords, and more specifically, we're going to be ranking them from worst to best in multiplayer. So this is going to be a little bit of a combination of both land battles, which are the traditional Warhammer 2 battles, as well as domination mode. I have had the chance to play these lords many times in both formats, and these are the conclusions I drew. We'll also do a little bit of discussion pertaining to how they could be improved, what are some things that could actually make them useful, maybe in future patches, because I really do think that these bad boys, at least the ones on the lower end of the spectrum, should be a little bit better. You know, they're the big namesake of their respective Chaos God. Now, starting with the biggest stinker of them all, both literally as well as, you know, for the sake of actual ranking, it is going to be Kugath Plaguefather. So Kugath, unfortunately, is very bad in multiplayer, in my opinion. Let's talk about why. So firstly, he's very expensive, which is okay. If you're paying, you know, for Scarbrand, for example, or, you know, the Big Chicken or Inkari, they're all, you know, relatively decent at what they do and are worth that price. You're getting your bang for your buck. But with Kugath, you're paying for 28 speed. So on domination mode, for example, he is gonna, you know, take forever to get to objectives. Now, in terms of design, what they did is they gave him a ranged attack, but the ranged attack really isn't that devastating. I also find he runs out of ammunition really quickly. And then he's just this giant potato that basically sits on the middle objective and brings nothing to the table. Now, looking at his kit, like you think he would be good. He's got a nice AoE melee defense buff. He's got Nurgling Tide. You can summon Nurglings. He's got a really nice Virulent Contagion to lower melee defense in the whole area, but really, he's just so expensive and so slow that in domination mode, he just doesn't do it. And even in blob fights, like if Kugath is like fully surrounded, he's not that punishing, to be honest. Like he just kind of sits there. He has less combat prowess than the Exalted Great Unclean One. He might as well be the Exalted Great Unclean One. The other guy should be Kugath. But you know, he just kind of sits there and really doesn't like do that much to remove the crowd. And that's really what you want from like a huge, greater Chungus demon like Kugath Plaguefather. Now, looking at the Exalted Great Unclean One, he's cheaper. He's better in combat as a brawler. So if you have Kugath fighting like a Bloodthirster, he's going to perform far worse, in my opinion, than the Exalted Great Unclean One, who does have extra melee attack. He also has, I believe, the same weapon strength, but generally speaking, Kugath does have just less combat stats. I mean, so you know, you want the extra melee attack on the big boy. And the best thing about the basic Exalted Great Unclean One is the fact that he has a Mortis Engine, which is so good. So Nurgle should win blob fights. Mortis Engines, or AoE Drains, as they're, you know, more typically called, I suppose, are a staple for that. So really, I think the fix is like, if Creative Assembly just gave Kugath a Mortis Engine, he would then be worth the price justification compared to an Exalted Great Unclean One. But then there's still some reason to take the basic Exalted Boy because he's faster, right? He's got 36 speed and Kugath has 28. So, you know, there's a little bit of interchange there, but overall, Kugath is just slow. His damage output isn't that great. Even in land battles where your opponent has to kind of attack you, typically they can avoid him. They can shoot him down with his 28 speed. He's really at a disadvantage compared to the Exalted Great Unclean One, who's got almost 40 speed and can move through formations, can dodge a little bit better, can get away from threats, whereas Kugath is just very unresponsive. He's very rough for sure. So Kugath is hands down the worst of the legendary Demon Lords. Now, the next, going from worst to best, is going to be Inkari. Now, I actually don't think Inkari is bad. Kugath is bad, for sure. Inkari just isn't as good as the other two on the list, in my opinion. Now, Inkari is great. 100 speed, has really good sniping abilities with the Wit Stealer Sword, which puts his weapon strength up over 1,000. He has access to a really good debuff via Willing Prey. He heals when he wipes out units and has Lore of Slaanesh, which is amazing. It has snares, good damage spells, brings a lot to the table. Overall, I would say Inkari is pretty good. Just not, you know, as good as the ones we're going to be talking about. But this Demon Lord, certainly very excellent in domination mode. Faster, and this is what's cool, is like, Inkari is actually faster than the Exalted Keepers. They have 80 speed, he has 100. So he brings something unique to the table in terms of additional mobility, also has a really good sniping item. Whereas the other Keepers do have summons, making them a very viable kind of other option. But I like how Slaanesh is designed in that both Inkari and the Exalted Keepers are interchangeable and bring something unique to the table. Whereas with Kugath, he just has like a terrible artillery ability and really doesn't do much. But Inkari is going to be the next pick from weakest to strongest. Now, coming in with the number 2 spot is going to be our boy Scarbrand the Exiled. Now, Scarbrand is a solid lord. Just very simple and very good at what he does. Carnage and Slaughter, or Slaughter and Carnage, is an excellent item. Basically, as he gets kills, he gets a permanent weapon damage increase, which in a land battle, you know, this often will get up to like, I'm talking like 800 weapon strength pretty consistently, which makes him an awesome sniper, an awesome duelist. He's got a really good ability, one of the better ones in the game, which is Rage Embodied. So he rampages everyone around him for 35 seconds. So let's say you're playing with a Kislev Lord, you get a little bit too close to Scarbrand and your character is within the range of being, you know, enraged, rampaged. Well, he can rampage you, and with that 800 weapon strength I was talking about and insane combat stats with 75 melee attack and 50 melee defense, he is going to be the beater of worlds. On top of that, he has a couple other nice abilities fueled by rage for weapon strength. He has a breath attack, which is actually surprisingly underrated. It's not that you do a lot of damage with it, but what you do with Scarbrand is you use his breath attack on a chaff unit to farm weapon strength. So you go down the side of like some Noblars, some basic infantry, some Nurglings, and it'll do like maybe 15% damage, but more importantly, you get a permanent weapon strength increase. So I do like bringing the breath attack, and Wrathful Reaper is not very good. I would not use that ability because it rampages him and you lose control, but can circumstantially be okay. So Scarbrand is the number 2 pick. Now, of course, no surprise, number 1 is going to be the giant chicken of Tzeentch. Now, this guy is a real monster. Absolutely decisive lord in both multiplayer in both domination as well as land battles. It's just crazy. So the main reason why is because Pendulum is extremely overpowered right now, and he has it. And on top of that, Tzeentch does have the Greater Arcane Conduit, which gives him 10% additional damage on their Pendulum in all their spells. Super good. He's got Pendulum, which is super OP, like decides most battles. He has Regrowth, so you got healing just in case you get a little bit beat up or need to heal something. You also have Blue Fire of Tzeentch, which is one of the better sniping spells in the game. And if that's not enough, Oracle of Eternity gives you 44% ward save if he gets in trouble. You have Gaze of Fate, 3 uses, a snare that also lowers melee attack, and it's just like the list keeps going. You have Staff of Tomorrow, which resets all your cooldowns, like just so much good stuff. And hey, let's say you run out of Winds of Magic. Well, you got the Scroll of Destiny, which will give you extra Winds of Magic. Like, he just brings so much good stuff to the table, and yeah, Kairos isn't as good in combat as the other keepers, or the other Exalted Lords of Change, excuse me, but he's like not bad. You know, he's got 400 plus weapon strength with a majority armor piercing. He can cycle charge. He's got Protoss shields, and we all know how OP Protoss are in StarCraft. So there you have it. So that is my list. Hands down, Kairos is the best. The second runner-up for sure is going to be Scarbrand. Coming in at number 3, it is going to be Inkari, and number 4 is going to be Kugath. And just to kind of briefly talk about some changes I would like to maybe see to these characters, for Big Daddy Kugath, he needs a Mortis Engine effect. Give him that, and he's good. He's going to be great. Because then, like, yeah, he's slow, but he has the range attack plus the Mortis Engine at the exchange of speed if you go with the basic keeper and price. But as he sits quite literally on his motor scooter right now, which is certainly a very low battery operated one, he is not great. He is just a potato. He brings very little to the table. And pretty much every time I load in against Nurgle, who's probably the weakest faction along with Cathay, I'm starting to actually think Nurgle's weaker than Cathay. And I see Kugath, I basically know I've won that multiplayer battle, unless my opponent, really outplays me in some other regard, or maybe I just play poorly myself. And, for Inkari, I wouldn't change much. I think Inkari's in a really good spot. He's good at what he does, a really good sniper, a glass cannon, very much in the flavor of Slaanesh. 100 speed, I love it. Inkari's fun, and I think a very well-designed lord. Now, coming up with Scarbrand, no changes either. I think Scarbrand's in a good spot and doesn't need any buffs. And for the chicken, the big Tzeentch chicken, I think that Pendulum needs a fat nerf in the face, like a huge nerf. Aside from that, Tzeentch has a lot of other issues, I think, that make them very, very strong compared to the other factions, more so in domination mode for sure. But land battles are quite oppressive as well. But yeah, I really do think that Pendulum just needs a huge nerf. And that's pretty much that. Like, nerf Pendulum, and I think that Kairos would probably maybe not be as good as Scarbrand. Scarbrand would probably take over the number 1 spot. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Appreciate you all. If there's anything you'd like to see, do let me know, and we'll be back soon with more good times.